baby, we're back. Or should I say, I'm back. Zach and Conlan are both with family today, so it's just me. For any new listeners, I'm AJ, and welcome to A to Z Sports Talk. There is so much happening right now in sports that we had to get another episode out this week. Today, we have my top 10 center fielders in baseball, as well as some league-wide updates. The NHL playoffs are in round 2, so I will be covering all 4 of those series. The NBA playoffs are in the conference finals, and then to finish up, our next NFL team to predict for this season is the Philadelphia Eagles. And I'm very excited to get to that. I hope everybody's having a great week so far. Going to be a little different. I hope everybody sticks it out with me today. But as I mentioned, in the MLB, our first position, or our next position, I should say, today is center field. Last week we did left field, and we talked about how it wasn't that great of a position. Well, center field's a little different. When we get to right field, that position's extremely stacked. And honestly, I didn't have really high expectations coming into talking about this position. But when I went over and was making my list, I realized it's pretty stacked, pretty loaded, especially top spot through the 7 spot. But really after the 10, it kind of gets weak. But let's get it started with my honorable mention. I have Julio Rodriguez on the list for the Mariners. He's a guy that has extreme potential, and I think he's going to be a top 10 center fielder for many years to come. He's just not there yet. Of course, it's only a 35-game sample size, so not a whole lot to go off of. But he's definitely, by the end of the year, he could be a top 10. And when we're making this list next year, he could easily be a top 10 center fielder. Trent Grisham is another name I had on my honorable mentions. He's batting 150 this year. Again, I don't want to look too much into a 35-game sample size, but I've never really been high on him. I know a lot of people are really high on Trent Grisham, center fielder for the Padres, but he just doesn't do it for me. I don't know what it is. He's a very good fielder, very tremendous, just all-around defender, great arm, but offensively just doesn't do it for me. Number 10 on my list, I had Randall Grichuk. Now, Grichuk is a guy, former Cardinal, that this year is really blossoming. And I don't know if that's just because it's in Colorado and that really helps him out. Such a big field and the altitude and everything. But this year so far, he has 5 homers, 21 RBIs, batting 275, 322 on base percentage, 440 slugging, an OPS of 762. So all throughout his career, he's had tremendous power. Very, very built guy. With great speed, great power. It was just about making more contact and putting it all together. And this year he's been doing that so far, batting 275. I'd love to see him keep it up moving forward. And hopefully, first of all, I don't think a lot of people probably had him in the top 10. I think that might be a stretch for a lot of people. But when you look at his years in the past, he's a career like 250 hitter, which is, we look at 250 and we're like, that's not very good. But in today's era of baseball, it's not terrible. And so 250 for his career, and then he's 20 plus homers at least every year with 30 plus power. So he's really in that middle of the order for the Rockies right now, batting 3rd or 4th on a nightly basis. And they're a competitive team at the moment. So you have to give him some credit here. And yeah, he's my number 10. Number 9, I had Kevin Kiermeier this year. 4 homers, 11 RBIs, 219 batting average, 265 on base, 396 slug, 661 OPS, and 3 stolen bases. Kiermeier is not known for his offensive ability, though. It's truly his defensive ability that puts him so high on many people's lists. And he's another name that I think a lot of people might have somebody else in their top 10 than Kevin Kiermeier. Some might have him a little higher. I have him in that 9 spot, and I look at the 8 guys ahead of him, and I say I would like them all on my team right now over Kevin Kiermeier. He's 32 now, which is not super old, but he's never been a high average guy, never been a high on base guy. Not a whole lot of power. He's just, besides my next guy on the list, he's really just the best center fielder defensively in baseball on a winning team on a yearly basis, which is the Tampa Bay Rays. Number 8, I had Harrison Bader of the St. Louis Cardinals. And a lot of people, I don't think, are fans of Bader. And I don't know. I know in the past he's been inconsistent hitting wise, but if he bats 250, 260 with the best glove in center field, and Right now, he has 11 stolen bases and 11 attempts. He could be a 30-plus stolen base guy. Like I mentioned, the best center fielder defensively in baseball. I know I just mentioned Kiermeier is great, but I would take Bader over him, especially at Bader's age. This year, Bader 3 homers, 11 RBIs, 240 batting average, 299 on base percentage, 344 slug, 643 OPS, and like I mentioned, 11 stolen bases. So Harrison, I think I might be putting him there a little early, but by the end of the season, I think everybody should have Harrison Bader in their top 10 center fielders. Number 7, I had Brandon Nimmo of the New York Mets. So far this year, 3 homers, 14 RBIs, 287 average, 391 on base percentage, 457 slug, OPS of 848, and he's a good defender, better than average out there. I saw a couple of years ago he was on the top 100 list for players in the MLB, and I was like, there's no way that Brandon Nimmo is a top 100 player. But you look at the stats, you look at all the in detail stats, the metrics, and he is a top 100 player, and he's a top 10 center fielder. Number 6 on my list, and this is when it starts getting pretty tough, trying to figure out who goes where, but Byron Reynolds is number 6 on my list. I could read off his stats this year. They're not great, but Byron Reynolds is a player that has proven himself in past years, and for a Pirates team that struggles so much, he is their star, along with Ke'Bryan Hayes at third base. But Byron Reynolds is a top 10 center fielder, and if you don't think so, I mean, you got to do a little more research than just a 35-game sample size. Great speed, great defender, great arm, can play all 3 outfield spots, can hit anywhere in the lineup, can lead off for you, can be your 3-hole hitter, can be your power guy. Very versatile player, and he's number 6 on my list. Number 5, I had Cedric Mullins of the Baltimore Orioles, and some might have him higher. But Cedric's a guy that's a good player, very good player. I don't want to diminish that at all. He's number 5 on my center fielders list. But this year so far, 5 homers, 16 RBIs, 256, 318 on base percentage, 413 slug, 731 OPS, and 7 stolen bases. Kind of a guy that does it all. A very, very good leadoff hitter. Average might not be where he wants it so far this year, but he's proven himself the last few years. And he's a guy that with these next 4 guys, I look at them as superstar potential. Cedric Mullins is a star in this league, and not many people hear about him because he's in Baltimore and they struggle so much over there, and for years now. But the top 4 guys are just above him, in my opinion, because they have superstar potential, and Cedric Mullins does not have that superstar ability. He has a star ability. Number 4, I have Luis Robert of the Chicago White Sox. So far this year, very strong start. 6 homers, 17 RBIs, 301 average, 338 on base percentage, 472 slugging, 810 OPS, and 6 stolen bases. He does it all. He's a 5-tool player. He can run with the best of them. He can throw with the best of them. He can hit with the best of them. Chicago's had a slow start this year, but he has produced. He's a middle of the order guy. He's only been in the league 2, maybe 3 years now. I think this is his 3rd season, full season. But he's a guy that could be even higher on this list by the end of the year. If he puts it all together, he's an MVP candidate. Luis Robert is a superstar, and when he came over from the Dominican, I believe, a lot of people were really high on him, and it's just about staying healthy. Speaking of staying healthy, number 3 on my list is Byron Buxton. 11 homers, 20 RBIs so far this year, 235 average, 318 on base percentage, a 622 slug, and a 941 on base or OPS. Sorry, 1 stolen base for Byron. That's not going to stay that way. He's going to start running crazy. And for me, it's just getting on base more. Like I said, his on base percentage is 318, which is not usually where it's at for him. But for him, like I mentioned, it is health for Byron Buxton. He needs to stay healthy, and hopefully we get to see that this year. I know he's I think he dealt with something last week, and Zach, when he was here with me, him and I were talking about how over under will he be hurt by the summer, midsummer, and it already happened. So Byron just has to stay healthy, has to stay on the field. He's a top-notch center fielder in this league, easily number 2. I don't know if he can be number one, and we'll get there. But number 2 on my list is George Springer of the Toronto Blue Jays. 7 homers, 22 RBIs, 271 average, 338 on base percentage, 496 slugging, 834 OPS, and 2 stolen bases. George Springer is not your prototypical leadoff hitter, but he bats leadoff for the Blue Jays. And in today's era where they want power at the top of the lineup, he's that guy. He's very good at what he does. Tremendous defensively. Top 5 center fielder defensively. Could win the Gold Glove this year. He's made a couple highlight reel plays already, and he's fantastic. He's proven himself in Houston in his several years there. He's proven himself now in Toronto, and I have him above Buxton just because of the health. George Springer is very reliable. He plays 140 plus games a year, and Buxton, I need to see that to be above him. And then number 1, it's not a shock to anybody, Mike Trout is number 1 on my list. And if he's not on everybody's list as number 1, just quit watching baseball at this point. 11 homers, 24 RBIs so far this year, 317 average, 427 on base percentage, 683 slugging, and then a whopping OPS of 1109, 1.109. I don't even know how to read that. I mean, it doesn't happen very often that somebody has an OPS that high. He hasn't no stolen bases this year, which kind of surprises me. But he's a stud, and I really don't have to talk about him because it should be known to everybody. He is the best player in baseball. If you want to make an argument, Ohtani's better because of everything Shohei Ohtani can do, then go for it. But Mike Trout is an absolute stud. First ballot Hall of Famer, could go down if healthy as the best baseball player of all time, but that will be determined on his health and if he just can stay on the field. So far this year, he has been able to, knock on wood, he's able to keep that up. So around the league, let's start with the Cardinals like we always do, our hometown team here. Some big news came recently, I believe yesterday or maybe even the night before yesterday. This is Saturday, so Thursday or Friday. Number 2 prospect in the Cardinals system and number 29 in all of baseball, Nolan Gorman, third baseman, probably going to play second base here, if not just DH. He was called up. He made his debut last night in Pittsburgh, was 1 for 3, I believe, with a walk, and then he had a single to begin his career. Really awesome seeing him up there. His family was getting real emotional. It was really cool to see. But not just that. Tonight, we get to see the debut of Matthew Liberatore. Another huge prospect in the Cardinals system, number 3 prospect actually, and number 39 in all of the league. So he's a tall, I believe 6'5", 6'6" lefty, big sharp breaking ball, and I think starting tonight in Pittsburgh should be a great start for him. The storyline though with him and Gorman is that they were best friends growing up, which is even if you're not a baseball fan, it's just extremely special. And having somebody that you played Little League with and then now being 21 and 22, 23, I know Gorman's 21. I don't know how old Liberatore is, early 20s. It's really special, especially when we drafted Gorman and the Rays drafted Liberatore. But we traded for Liberatore in that Randy Arozarena trade. We reunited Gorman and Liberatore, and not only did they get to play in the minors together, they get called up the same day. And even though Gorman isn't in the lineup tonight, when Liberatore is pitching, it's amazing to have both of them there together. Really class act by the Cardinals organization. Really great to see. The Cardinals, though, have dropped 3 of 4 to the Mets. We won Game 1 versus the Pirates. And my takeaway from the Mets series, we had a walk-off loss to Pete Alonso. That was just disgusting to even – I mean, I just had to walk away from that. But for me, it's inconsistency, pitching and hitting. It's feast or famine. You really just don't know we just have to stay consistent. We really don't know what we're going to be getting on a nightly basis. Goldie's been on a tear. I think he's batting .319 now, looking like an MVP candidate. Hopefully he can keep this up. I know I saw a stat earlier today. He's being thrown 34% of the time he's being thrown sliders. And he's batting like .410 on sliders. But he's also a tremendous fastball hitter. So I really don't know how you attack Goldie at this point. You kind of just have to throw it up there and pray. But Hopefully, it's not a must win or anything, but you really want to go in there to Pittsburgh against a depleted Pittsburgh team and just win all three. Wayno was tremendous last night, and tonight we have Liberatore, and tomorrow I believe we have Michaelis. So win all three of these, and then on Monday come back home to play Toronto for a couple. Around the league, though, the Los Angeles Dodgers have gotten hot, and they've been pretty good all year. And but now they've won 6 straight games. The Los Angeles Angels right fielder Taylor Ward, we mentioned him a few weeks ago, I believe, but he's batting 370 on the year, and he's been red hot all year. Just an absolute mainstay now in that lineup for the Angels, and their lineup's really looking scary. And they've got enough pitching, and that's why they're, I believe, 24-16 now on the season. And hopefully they can make the playoffs for the second time in Mike Trout's career. But you have Taylor Ward in right field, you have Brandon Marsh in left. We talked about him last week. You have Trout in center, Ohtani playing on both sides of the ball. Anthony Rendon is finally healthy. Jared Walsh has been playing well. They're really stacked. They have a solid bullpen. They're getting great contribution from Noah Syndergaard, Michael Lorenzen in their rotation. So hopefully they can keep it up. I hate to say this next point, but Manny Machado is probably the top National League MVP candidate right now. He's batting 363 with 7 homers and 24 RBIs. Top 3 defensive third baseman in baseball. If not number 1, you could make that argument with Nato and Chapman and guys like that. But I don't really know who likes Manny Machado besides Padres fans and maybe Manny's family. But yeah, he's the top NL MVP candidate at the moment. Hopefully Arenado can keep it going here. He's slumped lately, still in the 290s with like 31 RBIs and 9 home runs, I believe. So but hopefully Machado can slow down a little bit, and somebody else can get on top as the season moves on. The Cincinnati Reds are 8-2 in their last 10. And I feel like we talk about the Reds every week, but they've been playing better baseball. And Joey Votto's been missing time. He was on the COVID list, just came back. He actually had an RBI double today, but we mentioned his slow start, and really the Reds just a disgrace of a team is what really everybody in baseball and in the baseball community was talking about and calling them. But they've been playing a whole lot better. And the Nationals are now probably the worst team in baseball. If you go in the power rankings, the Reds have passed them. And maybe the Reds can make something out of the season. I'm not talking a wild card or anything crazy. Definitely not winning the division or anything like that. But maybe they can not be last. Maybe the Cubs and the Pirates, maybe they can catch them. They're only like 4 games behind them, so why not? And then my last team to talk about is the Red Sox. The Red Sox is another team we have mentioned about how poorly they've been playing this year. Their hitting is great, but their pitching has been terrible. Well, their pitching has been better, and they are 7-3 in their last 10. And I can't go without mentioning Trevor Story, who has really struggled to start his career really there in Boston. Well, he had 3 homers the other night on Thursday night versus the Mariners. He had 2 coming into the game. All 3 were bombs. I mean, I believe he hit one all the way into center. He hit 2 he hit 1 right over the monster. And actually, former Red Sox player Johnny Gomes caught it, which was kind of funny. And then he hit one in like over the monster into the street. So, I mean, you could see the emotion coming around the bases for Trevor. Kind of a relieving moment, probably, especially with Boston fans. I'm sure they've been on him. And so very good for him to get that. I've always been a Trevor Story fan. He actually has 4 homers in his last 2 games. And I think I mentioned it already, but he had 2 homers going into that Mariners game on Thursday night, and he had 3 in that one game. So hopefully Trevor can get it going. I would be okay if the Red Sox continued to struggle the whole season, but Trevor Story, definitely cheering for him. Let's move on to some NHL talk here. We're in round 2 of the playoffs. Let's start in the East with Carolina and the Rangers series. Carolina's up 2-0 on the Rangers behind tremendous goaltending by Antti Raanta. And every game has been low scoring. And I thought that if this going into the series, if it was low scoring, that the Rangers would have the advantage, especially with Shesterkin. And I believe the Rangers' offense is more lethal than Carolina's, more deeper, more star players. Kreider and Zibanejad, Capo Caco. I'm missing a couple names, but I mean, they're very talented offensively. Strom is there too, but they've lost both tight games. And I know it was in Carolina. Carolina's crowd is crazy, but game one, they lost 2-1 in overtime, and game two, they lost 2-0. Shesterkin's been great, and Carolina is more of a defensive based team, and they're deep now. But yeah, I don't know if the Rangers have a chance. I didn't give them a chance coming into the series, but I was thinking that if it was a lower scoring series, that they would have the advantage and maybe win a couple, if not come out of the series quite possibly. But they're going back to New York down 2-0. They need game three. I mean, if you go down 3-0, especially a team like Carolina this time of year, you're pretty much done for. Let's stay in the East and talk about the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Florida Panthers. Game one, actually, I don't have game one written down, but Tampa Bay's up 2-0 on the Panthers. I believe, game one, I think it was 4-1 actually. But my three main takeaways from this series so far is I had the Panthers in 6, but I was not going to be surprised if the Lightning, who have won back-to-back cups, would come out on top. And Vasilevsky has been incredible, and I just don't know. You have to stop, you have to score on them to win, and I just don't know who can do that. If the Panthers can't do that, and they have one of the most lethal offenses in hockey, I just don't know who's going to be able to. Game two was just heartbreaking for Florida Panthers fans, though. Kucherov, with about 5 seconds left, is behind the net, and it's a tie game. You just really hold them off, and you go to overtime. Protect your net. Kucherov, they dumped it around the net. He's behind the net. Forsling, the left defenseman for the Panthers, is on his back pretty much, and Mackenzie Weegar has a mental breakdown. He's the right defenseman on the right side of the net for the Panthers, and he goes and pretty much double teams with Forsling on Kucherov. It was a miscommunication. The forward didn't drop down either. He stayed on the blue line. And Ross Colton was just sliding to the net. Kucherov made a tremendous behind-the-back pass. Ross Colton roofs it over Bobrovsky, and the Lightning go up 2-0 in the series. There was 3 seconds left. Absolutely heartbreaking for Florida to play both games on home ice to start the series and lose both of them. And now they go back to Tampa Bay, where it's just a hostile environment with a team that's experienced and driven. They're blocking shots when you would think we've won two cups in a row. Maybe they wouldn't have that drive. They are looking so tough right now. And I know Toronto pushed them in the first round, but Florida might be done. They really might be. Tampa is looking very dominant right now. Let's move on to the West. Let's start with the Battle of Alberta. The Calgary Flames and the Edmonton Oilers are now tied 1-1 in the series, and it's probably been the second most exciting series so far. Game one was one of the weirdest hockey games I've ever seen. Started out 5-1 Calgary, and then the Oilers came back and tied it. It was 6-6, and then the Flames scored 3, and it was 9-6, and they ended up winning 9-6. It's just a 15-goal game. Mike Smith was awful, and Markstrom for Calgary has been awful both games. But what I've taken out from watching both of those games is that the weaknesses of both teams are being shown, and whoever comes out of that Colorado and Blues series, I think wins in 5 or 6. And I picked Calgary along with Zach and Conlan to win it all. But unless they figure out some defensive help and defensive, they're just having breakdowns. And I know they're playing McDavid and Draisaitl, and you're going to give up opportunities because they're so talented and gifted. But both teams are just having mental breakdowns defensively, kind of leaving their goalies out to dry. And then their goalies aren't on the top of their game either. So that's why so many goals are being scored. Markstrom led the league in shutouts this year. I was really high on him. He has been terrible in both games. Gave up however many in game one before they pulled him. And then, I don't even know if they did pull him, actually, now that I think about it. But they gave up 6 as a team, and then Game 2, they gave up 5. Mike Smith, even though I've been kind of a hater on Mike Smith all year, he was very, very good in game 2 versus Calgary. Really stood tall, and it was a 3-3 hockey game, and there was a misplay on the power play by Calgary, and I believe it was Zach Hyman for the Oilers took that turnover all the way one end to the other, scored on Markstrom. Like 2 minutes later, Draisaitl does the same thing. Gets a breakaway, and it's Draisaitl 1-on-1. I'm taking Draisaitl all day. He fires it past Markstrom, and they tie the series 1-1. And you go back to Edmonton now in a hostile environment with a blue collar city that is hungry, and even though they're up and down all the time, this entire season, the last few years, they've been up and down. It's a hungry team that can do some damage, especially with probably the 2 best players on the planet. So, not looking good for Calgary unless they can get it together on the road. They got to come back home for Game 5 at least 2-2. So keep an eye on that one. I really quickly, I forgot to mention, with that Tampa Bay Lightning Florida Panthers series, Panthers are 0 for the last 25 on the power play. And with a lethal offense like that, with Duclair and Huberdeau and Barkov, defensively with Uyghur and Ekblad, Connor Verhaeghe, they have so many weapons. You can't be 0 for your last 25 on the power play. You have to take care of special teams this time of year to win. And speaking of special teams, the St. Louis Blues are one of the best special team units in hockey on both ends. Top 5 power play, top 5 penalty kill. Game 1, Jordan Binnington was unbelievable. I believe it was 52 saves. We ended up losing 3-2. The Avs won on a Manson, their defenseman Manson, kind of shot it with traffic in front of the net. Jordan Binnington couldn't really figure out, he couldn't find the puck, and it got past him, and it was deflating for sure. But I knew the Blues did not play very well. Bad turnovers. Maybe the altitude was getting to us a little bit, but for us to lose in overtime, and I know Binnington was great. I thought defensively, I know they hit 6 posts, but I thought we weren't giving up tremendous opportunities. We didn't give up some of those odd man rushes like we did against Minnesota in the first round. So I actually came away from that game feeling kind of positive. And I know I was talking to Zach and Conlan about it, and Zach was talking about how it was a rough loss to have, and Conlan was a little worried because we played awful, and I took it as we played awful, and we lost 3-2 in overtime to the best team in hockey, arguably the best team in hockey. So I was staying positive, and our team is resilient. Our team is experienced. We've been here before, and we came into game 2 and we took care of business. We won 4-1 behind 2 goals by David Perron, and Jordan Binnington was unbelievable once again. We outshot them, which is huge. And the one big difference maker, and I have it here in quotations, is just in caps, Jordan Binnington. He's been psycho Jordan Binnington like he was in 2019 when we won the cup. And if we somehow, tonight is game 3 versus Colorado, if we can somehow come out of this series with a win against Colorado, get our revenge because they swept us last year, and I would say we have the advantage right now coming back home, that we will wipe out Calgary or Edmonton. I don't know if that's a hot take. I don't know how you guys all feel about that. I don't fear Calgary or Edmonton. I fear Colorado a little bit, and I definitely fear Tampa on the other side because they're experienced. But these 3 teams in the West with the Blues right now have not been here and done that. And we have. And I know it was only 1 year, but that was a year full of experience, and we have a lot of those guys back. Another huge difference maker is that we are stopping Cale Makar from blowing by people like he has all year long and impacting the game on both ends. And I mentioned this, we are attacking the blue line, especially guys like O'Reilly and Shen and Bozak and Barbashev, guys that are tough, and we are crashing the blue line so tight that he can't blow by people. McKinnon is skating crazy, And I don't know how he doesn't have a goal yet. He's been everywhere. A lot of that has to do with Jordan Binnington being so great. But we are stopping Cale Makar, which I thought was the key to this series because he can be such a game changer with everything that he can do on the ice. So game threes begin tonight and continue throughout the weekend. There's only one game tonight. It is the Blues and Avs at 7 o'clock Central. This episode will probably be out after that game is over, but wow, these NHL playoffs have been so fun and will continue to be. Let's move on to the NBA. Blowouts everywhere. Both series. The Warriors are up 2-0 on the Mavs. Game 1 was a blowout. I don't even want to talk about it. It was by like a 20-point game. It was just a blowout. Game 2 was really close, but the Mavs couldn't get stops at the end. They ended up losing 126-117. Luka had 42, was unbelievable. At the end, it was like a 4-point game at one point, and they just could not get stops. They could not. They just kept going back and forth. Luka step back three. Jalen Brunson, and then Steph would hit a three. And then Jalen Brunson a layup. And then they would come down and Jordan Poole would get a layup or whoever it was. I mean, it was just you could not get stops at the end of the game. And that's what really hurt them. I do have hope for the Mavs, though. Game 3 is tomorrow night. They're going back home. They need game 3. You get game 3. It's kind of like what they did in Phoenix. I believe they went down 2-0 to Phoenix. They came back home. They took care of business, tied it 2-2. 1-1 in Phoenix, won game 7 in Phoenix. And that's all they needed. So I'm not giving up on the Mavs yet. Definitely the Warriors are a better team, but the Mavs can do this thing still. They have probably, I'm not hating on Steph at all, but Luka is the best player in this series. And as long as you have that, you have a chance, especially if role guys who always play better at home come up big. Jalen Brunson, Reggie Bullock at home, Dorian Finney-Smith at home, Spencer Dinwiddie, Bertans, guys like that come up big at home. They could easily tie the series going back to Golden State for game 5. But you have to worry one game at a time, and you need to win game 3. In the East, the Heat versus the Celtics. Game 1 was a blowout. Miami Heat blew them out 118-107. It was not as close as the final score was. 118-107, like I said, but it was a blowout until the very end. Game 2, the Celtics blew the Heat out 127-102. I believe these last few games, the average final score was a 17-point differential. It's just blowouts everywhere. Not fantastic basketball to watch, which is kind of sad, but like I said, the Celtics won game 2, 127-102, behind 20-plus points each from Tatum, Brown, and Smart. That was huge. Game 3 is tonight in Boston. I give the advantage to Boston. I think they win game 3 tonight, but I think the Heat still win the series. I don't want to give up on the Heat just because they had a bad loss at home in game 2. They're experienced this time of year, and they have the better coach. They don't have the best player on the floor, but they're deeper, more experienced, and have the better coach, like I said. And Eric Spoelstra, and I'm not hating on Udoka for the Boston Celtics, but Eric Spoelstra is arguably the best coach in basketball, and I'm going to roll with them for the rest of the series. And then today's episode, it might be moving a little quick. I don't know the time here, but it seems like it's moving a little quick. But we're gonna finish it up. I'm gonna finish it up, I should say, with our next NFL team we're talking about. Today is the Philadelphia Eagles. I have my prediction for their final record is 10-7, and I'm excited for them. I'm not a Philly fan in any sport, mostly because how their fans are, but I'm excited for what they are and what they can be. I have high hopes for Jalen Hurts. I think at the end of the year he could be a top 15 quarterback, especially getting a guy like A.J. Brown at the draft. They traded for him. He's going to help their offense become so more versatile. They were only run last year. It was run. Jordan Howard, Miles Sanders, Jalen Hurts. It was just like pound football. And being able to have that threat and keep the defense on their toes is huge, especially having a star wide receiver and A.J. Brown, tough, physical guy who can go catch football with the best of them. And Jalen Hurts, I think he's going to develop more from just a running quarterback like he was last year. He's going to be able to pass more. You got Dallas Goedert there. You got I forgot the rookie from last year. Man, I'm drawing a blank. The rookie wide receiver from last year. And then you have AJ Brown too. So they have weapons on both sides now. And I do have them finishing 10-7. I think the Cowboys and the Eagles will be very close games throughout the entire season. Both of those games are must-watch TV. I believe the Eagles start the season with the Lions, and then the Vikings, and then the Commanders. I believe they start 2-1. I think they won the first two, but lose in Washington. But if you're the Eagles, you could be better than 10-7. You got to take care of your division. You got to beat, and you could be worse than 10-7 too. If you have to take care of your division. You face the Giants twice. You face the Commanders and the Cowboys. I have them losing both to the Cowboys. But if they win one, then everything changes. It really does. And I think they could be a playoff team. I really do. And I hate to say that because I don't like Philly, but they definitely could. My final analysis for them is that they are a very possible wild card. It's going to be tough to win the division with the Cowboys there. Again, Zach, if you're listening to this, bro, I hate the Cowboys. But I think the Eagles could compete for a division, especially if the Cowboys get a couple injuries. Or again, I mentioned last week, in football, anything can happen. So who knows? I have them finishing 10-7 though. And next week we will be talking about the Cowboys. So stay in tune for that. But thank you everybody for listening. Again, I don't know how long this episode is. I don't have the time with me here, but I do want to give an update on our social media. We are 10 followers away from 100 on Instagram. We are, I believe, 35 subscribers away from 100 on YouTube. So please continue to subscribe and follow. We're getting followers now on TikTok, so thank you all for that. And let's keep this thing going, guys. We really want to grow this, and we'll be back Tuesday. I believe all three of us will be here. If not, at least me and Zach. And we really appreciate you guys listening and taking your time out to support us. And we'll be back with some news just like today from every single sport. And we'll see you guys then. Thanks, guys.